I found the adoption papers with my signature on them. My own sister sold my baby for $100,000 while I was in labor. She made me believe I was signing insurance forms. Now I know the truth, and they have no idea what's coming. The contractions had started at 3 a.m. By the time Rachel drove me to the hospital, I was already dilated 7 centimeters. The pain came in waves that made everything blur: the fluorescent lights, the nurses' voices, my sister's face hovering above mine. "Lisa, you need to sign these insurance forms," Rachel said, her voice carrying an unusual tension. "The hospital won't admit you without them." I remember the pen shaking in my hand as another contraction ripped through me. The papers were a blur of text. I trusted my sister. I signed where she pointed. "My name is Lisa Park. I'm 28 years old and I live in Denver, Colorado. Or at least I did until 6 months ago, when my entire world collapsed around me. I never got to hold my baby girl. Rachel told me there were complications, that my daughter was stillborn. I spent weeks drowning in grief, barely able to function while my sister took care of everything. The funeral arrangements, the medical bills. She even cleaned out the nursery I'd painted yellow, saying it would help me heal. "She's in a better place," Rachel kept saying. "You need to move forward." But something felt wrong. The hospital had sedated me heavily after delivery. Why couldn't I remember seeing my baby? Why wasn't I allowed to hold her, even if to say goodbye? When I asked to see death certificates or medical records, Rachel always had excuses. Then came the day I found the adoption papers while searching for my birth certificate in Rachel's home office. Papers with my signature. Papers signing away all parental rights to my daughter. Papers dated the exact day I gave birth. My daughter wasn't dead. She had been stolen from me. If you're listening to this story right now, I hope you'll stay with me. It gets so much worse before it gets better. If you've ever felt betrayed by family, please like it. Also, share in the comments if you've realized that someone you trusted was living a lie. The moment I found those papers, something inside me changed. The grief that had hollowed me out for months crystallized into something hard and cold. I put everything back exactly as I'd found it. Rachel couldn't know I'd discovered the truth, not yet. That night, I lay awake planning. Rachel had always been the successful sister, the marketing executive with the spotless downtown condo and designer wardrobe. I was the struggling graphic designer who got knocked up by a boyfriend who disappeared when the pregnancy test showed positive. Rachel had swooped in to help when Eric left, insisting I move in with her for the duration of my pregnancy. "Family takes care of family," she'd said. The irony made me sick now. The next morning, I started my investigation. While Rachel was at work, I tore her condo apart searching for more information. In her bedroom, hidden in a false bottom of her jewelry box, I found a contract with a couple named Jonathan and Elise Miller. $100,000 in exchange for a healthy newborn baby girl. My baby girl. There was a photo attached. A smiling couple holding a tiny bundle wrapped in the same yellow blanket I had packed in my hospital bag. My daughter. The child I was told had died. I vomited in Rachel's pristine bathroom, then cleaned it meticulously. No traces, no warnings. I needed to know more before confronting her. The contract had the Millers' address, a mansion in Cherry Creek, one of Denver's wealthiest neighborhoods. I drove by that afternoon, parking across the street. A perfect lawn. A luxury SUV was in the driveway. These people had money, clearly. They had bought my baby as if she were a commodity. I needed an ally, someone who could help me navigate what was clearly an illegal adoption. But who could I trust? Not my friends. Rachel had charmed them all during my pregnancy with her selfless support. Not the police. I had no proof beyond documents with my own signature on them. Then I remembered Sarah, the labor and delivery nurse who had seemed concerned when Rachel kept dismissing my questions about my baby. She had slipped me her personal number, "If you ever need anything." At the time, I thought it was professional courtesy. Now I wondered if she had suspected something. I called her from a coffee shop 3 neighborhoods away from Rachel's condo. "I need to talk to you about what happened during my delivery," I said when she answered. Something illegal happened to my baby. There was a long pause. I've been waiting for this call, Sarah finally said. Meet me at Dayton Street Park in an hour. Sarah sat on a bench, still wearing scrubs from her shift. When she saw me, her professional demeanor cracked. I knew something wasn't right, she said. Your sister kept everyone away from you. The medication orders were excessive. I tried to report it, but without concrete evidence, no one would listen. My baby isn't dead, is she? Sarah shook her head. There was no stillbirth recorded that day. You delivered a healthy baby girl. I held her myself. My breath caught. Did you see me sign anything? Your sister brought papers when you were at your worst pain. She said they were insurance forms. The doctor delivered another baby, and they called me away for an emergency. When I came back, you were being prepped for delivery, and your sister was putting the papers in her bag. She sold my baby, I whispered, for $100,000. Sarah's eyes widened. That's a serious crime. You need a lawyer. I need proof first, and I need to understand why. Rachel's successful. She doesn't need that money. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about my baby growing up, calling another woman mommy. I thought about Rachel's betrayal. What kind of person sells her own sister's child? The next day, I called in sick to work and waited until Rachel left. Then I did something I had never done before. I hacked into her laptop. It wasn't hard. Her password was our childhood dog's name followed by her birth year. Rachel had always been sentimental, but not particularly creative. What I found shattered any remaining illusions I had about my sister. Rachel wasn't the successful marketing executive she pretended to be. Her bank accounts were nearly empty. Credit card statements revealed huge debt. They showed spending on designer clothes, luxury vacations, and gambling in Las Vegas. She was drowning financially. But there was more. Emails between Rachel and the Millers dated back to my 5th month of pregnancy. They hadn't just taken advantage of my vulnerability during labor. This had been planned for months. The subject continues to be unaware, Rachel had written in one email. She believes I'm helping her prepare for motherhood. Delivery is expected mid-January. Payment is to be made upon successful transfer. The subject, that's what I was to her, not her sister, a subject in her transaction. Then I found something that made my blood freeze. An email from Rachel to someone named Victor. Second acquisition proceeding as planned. The first acquisition from 2019 was successful, but this one will command a higher premium due to the subject's genetic background and physical attributes. Second acquisition. This wasn't the first time. I scrolled frantically through her emails, searching for information about this first acquisition. I found nothing concrete, just vague references. But I did find something else, photos of Rachel with Jonathan Miller at various events dating back 5 years. They weren't strangers who found her through an adoption agency. They knew each other. The more I dug, the more horrified I became. Rachel had an encrypted folder labeled acquisitions. Using her pattern of sentimental passwords, I tried several combinations until Mom's birthday 1984 unlocked it. Inside were detailed files on 3 women, all single, all vulnerable. One was labeled, completed 2019. Another had my name. The third was labeled Prospect 2023. My sister wasn't just an opportunist who saw a chance to profit from my situation. She was running some kind of baby-selling operation, targeting vulnerable women. I was physically shaking as I copied everything to a USB drive. I carefully closed all the files and shut down her laptop, placing it exactly as I'd found it. That afternoon, I met Sarah again. I couldn't tell her everything, not yet, but I needed more information about what happened at the hospital. Do you remember anything unusual about the day I delivered? I asked. Anything about Rachel or any visitors? Sarah thought for a moment. There was a couple who came to the maternity ward that day. They didn't check in at the desk, which is protocol. I remember because the woman was carrying a designer bag that probably cost more than my monthly salary, and they seemed to know exactly where they were going. The Millers, I whispered. I can check the security footage, Sarah offered. I have a friend in security who owes me a favor. 2 days later, Sarah texted me to meet urgently. She looked pale when I arrived at the cafe. I got the footage, she said, sliding a USB drive across the table. Lisa, your sister falsified medical records. According to the official record, you had a stillbirth. But the footage shows a man and a woman leaving with a baby 20 minutes after your delivery. Your sister is with them, escorting them out a side entrance. They took my daughter right out of the hospital, I said, my voice hollow. There's more, Sarah hesitated. I looked into the Millers. Jonathan Miller sits on the hospital's board of directors. He has influence. And this isn't their first private adoption. What do you mean? 3 years ago, they adopted a baby boy through similar circumstances. The birth mother later tried to claim she never consented, that she was coerced. She was discredited, made to look unstable. She lost her case and… Sarah paused. She died of an overdose 6 months later. The first acquisition. A cold chill ran through me. I need to get my baby back, I said. You need to be careful, Sarah warned. These people have money and influence, and your sister. My sister is a monster, I said. That night, Rachel invited me to dinner. She'd been watching me carefully since I found the documents, though she didn't know I'd discovered them. I'd been playing the role of a grieving mother, slowly healing from my supposed loss. You're looking better, she said over pasta at her favorite restaurant. I'm proud of how you're moving forward. I forced a smile. I'm trying. Some days are harder than others. You know what might help? A change of scenery. My company is opening an office in Phoenix. I could help you get set up there, a fresh start. She was trying to get me to move away, far from Denver, far from my daughter. That's really thoughtful, I said, choking down my rage with a sip of water. Let me think about it. Rachel reached across the table and squeezed my hand. That's all I ask. You know I only want what's best for you. I looked into my sister's eyes I'd trusted my entire life, and saw nothing but a stranger. A dangerous, calculating stranger who had stolen my child. Later that week, Sarah connected me with a lawyer friend who specialized in family law. Her name was Diane, and she didn't sugarcoat the situation. What you're describing is illegal on many levels: fraud, coercion, falsification of medical records, she said. But proving it won't be easy. Your signature is on those documents. I was in labor, I protested. I was told they were insurance forms. I believe you, Diane said gently. But courts hear that argument often in contested adoptions. We need more than just your word against hers. What about the emails, the contract with the money? That's stronger evidence. The security footage helps too, but we need to build an airtight case. These people have resources. She tapped her pen against her desk. Tell me more about these other acquisitions you mentioned. I explained what I had found. The encrypted folder, the 3 files, and the references to a previous acquisition in 2019. If we can prove a pattern, that strengthens our case considerably, Diane said. We need to identify this other woman from 2019. That became my mission. While continuing to play the role of a recovering, grieving mother to Rachel, I spent every other waking moment investigating. Sarah helped by searching hospital records for births with similar documentation patterns. Diane quietly filed requests for information about private adoptions handled by specific law firms we suspected were involved. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. While helping Rachel clean her condo one weekend, part of my act of healing through staying busy, I found an old phone in a drawer. It wasn't password protected, clearly a backup or forgotten device. The text messages on it included exchanges with someone named Melissa from 2019, arranging meetings, discussing the arrangement, talking about when the time comes. I copied down Melissa's number and later, from a burner phone, sent a text. I know about the baby and Rachel Park. I'm another victim. Please call this number if you're willing to talk. 3 days later, my burner phone rang. Who is this? A cautious voice asked. My name is Lisa Park. Rachel is my sister. She took my baby. She did the same to you. Silence. Then, meet me at Washington Park tomorrow at noon. East Pavilion. Melissa turned out to be a thin, haunted-looking woman in her early 30s. She flinched when I approached. "Are you wearing a wire?" she demanded. "Are you recording this?" "No," I said, showing her that my phone was off. "I want to know what happened to you." Her story poured out in jagged fragments. She had been homeless, pregnant, desperate. Rachel had found her at a shelter, offered help, and gained her trust. Promised to help with medical care and housing until the baby came. "She was so kind," Melissa said bitterly. "Until I delivered. Then suddenly there were papers to sign. I was so medicated I could barely see. They told me my baby was sick and needed special care I couldn't afford, that these good people would give him the life he deserved." "The Millers," I said. Melissa looked up sharply. "Do you know them?" "They have my daughter." "They had my son," she said, eyes distant. "When I sobered up and realized what had happened, I tried to fight it. Rachel had prepared for that. She had documentation of my homeless status and my previous drug use. She made me look unfit, made me look crazy." "The court ruled against you." "I never even got a hearing. My lawyer dropped me when the money ran out. I started using it again." She pulled up her sleeve, showing track marks now healing. 6 months in rehab. I got out 3 weeks ago." "The records said you died of an overdose." She laughed hollowly. "Rachel's insurance, in case I ever came back. As far as the world's concerned, I'm dead." "I'm building a case," I told her. "Would you testify about what happened to you?" "Nobody would believe me." "I have evidence, emails, the contract, security footage. With your story added, we could expose everything." Melissa hesitated, then nodded. "For my son and your daughter." With Melissa's testimony, our case grew stronger. Diane was cautiously optimistic, but warned me that the Millers would fight back hard. They had a reputation, money, and influence. "They'll claim they knew nothing about the coercion," she said. "That they believe it is a legitimate private adoption." "What about Rachel? She can't claim ignorance." "Rachel is legally more vulnerable," Diane agreed. "But don't underestimate family loyalty. When pushed, she might try to reconcile to buy your silence." As if on cue, Rachel invited me to Sunday brunch that weekend. She seemed unusually nervous, checking her phone frequently. "Lisa, I've been thinking," she said, stirring her mimosa. "You've been through so much. I want to make things better for you." "How would you do that?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "I've been saving to help you. I know you've wanted to open your own design studio. I could help with the startup costs." I blinked. Was she trying to buy me off without even knowing I was investigating her? "That's generous," I said carefully. "We're sisters," Rachel said, reaching for my hand. "Park girls stick together, right? Like Mom always said." I felt physically ill at her invoking our mother, who had died, thinking that her daughters would always protect one another. "Right," I managed to say. "How much were you thinking of investing?" Rachel smiled, relieved that I was engaging. "I could put up $50,000 to get you started." Half of what she got for my baby. How appropriate. "I'd need to think about it," I said. "That's a lot of money." "Take your time," Rachel said. "Family is forever." As I drove home from brunch, my phone pinged with a text from an unknown number. "I have information about your baby. Corner of 15th and Larimer, 7 p.m. tonight. Come alone." I debated whether it was a trap, but decided I couldn't ignore any leads. I arrived early, watching the meeting spot from a cafe across the street. At exactly 7, a man in a suit appeared. With a jolt, I recognized him as Jonathan Miller's personal assistant. I'd seen him in photos from the company website while researching the Millers. I approached cautiously. "Did you text me?" He glanced around nervously. "I don't have much time. Mr. Miller doesn't know I'm here." "You work for the man who bought my baby." He winced. "I didn't know, not at first. I handled paperwork and arrangements. But then I found the payments. The communications with your sister, previous arrangements." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because they're leaving the country, tomorrow night. Private jet to Switzerland, with your daughter." He handed me a USB drive. Account numbers, transfers to your sister date back 3 years, evidence they knew exactly what they were doing. My heart raced. Why are you helping me? He looked away. The first baby, the boy, he died 3 months ago. The Millers covered it up. I can't be part of this anymore. I gasped. Died how? Official report says SIDS, but I saw the bruises before they had the private doctor come. Your daughter. I don't think she's safe with them. I clutched the USB drive. I need to go to the police. They have friends in the department. Go to the FBI instead. Interstate crime. He walked away quickly, disappearing into the evening crowd. I immediately called Diane, then Sarah. We met at Diane's office within the hour. The USB drive contained exactly what the assistant promised: financial records, emails, and evidence of Rachel's involvement in many illegal adoptions. And something even more damning, medical records for Melissa's son showing suspicious injuries in the months before his death. This changes everything, Diane said. We need to move now. If they leave the country with your daughter, getting her back becomes exponentially harder. She made calls to contacts at the FBI. By midnight, I was sitting in a federal building, stating everything, finding the adoption papers, discovering Rachel's scheme, meeting Melissa, and receiving the USB drive. By dawn, federal agents had raided the Millers' mansion. Rachel was arrested at her condo. The Millers were taken into custody at the airport, where they had already boarded their private jet. And my daughter, my beautiful 6-month-old daughter whom I'd never held, was temporarily placed with a foster family while DNA tests confirmed what everyone already knew. I was her mother. 3 days later, with tests confirmed and emergency hearings held, I finally held my daughter in my arms. They had named her Elise after her mother. I renamed her Hope. The case against Rachel and the Millers made national news. Baby selling ring exposed. Socialite couple charged in infant trafficking case. Woman sells sister's baby during labor. Rachel refused to see me after her arrest. Through her lawyer, she maintained that she'd only been trying to help, that I wasn't ready to be a mother, that she'd secured a better life for my child. The evidence told a different story. The money trail, the many victims, the calculated deception. 4 months later, I sat in a courtroom as Rachel took a plea deal to avoid a longer sentence. 10 years, eligible for parole in 6. The Millers faced more charges related to the death of Melissa's son. Their legal team was fighting, but the evidence was damning. After the hearing, Rachel finally looked at me as officers led her away. There was no remorse in her eyes, only cold calculation, even then. I gave her a better life than you ever could, she hissed as she passed. I stood tall, holding Hope in my arms. No, you sold her like property. I'm giving her love. That night, as I rocked my daughter to sleep in the nursery of our new apartment, funded partly by the restitution ordered in the case, I thought about everything that had happened. The betrayal, the investigation, the reunion with the daughter I'd thought was dead. Rachel had stolen 6 months I could never get back, first steps, first smiles, but she hadn't won. Hope was home where she belonged. Some days, I still wonder how my sister became the monster who could sell her own niece. Was it just money? Was there always this darkness in her that I never saw? The little girl who held my hand on the first day of school seems impossibly distant from the woman who stole my child. Family is supposed to be forever, like Rachel said. But sometimes, family is the very thing that breaks you. And sometimes, finding the strength to fight back against that betrayal is what truly makes you whole again. I look at my daughter's sleeping face and make a promise. No one will ever hurt you again. And that promise, unlike my sister's, is one I'll keep until my dying breath. If my story touched you, please hit that subscribe button. I share it not just for me, but for all the mothers out there who have had to fight for their children. For everyone who's had to rebuild after betrayal. Leave a comment if you've stood up to family who tried to destroy you. We're stronger together.